Hello to all. Happy 2026. How's it going, Jay?
It's going well. I'm
And the
grateful for this group because last month a couple of ideas were suggested and they were great.
oh, fantastic. What did you try that worked well?
Well, Shelley suggested a couple of projects that LSC had funded 10 years ago for plain language, write
Hmm.
clearly and read clearly. Neither of them are working, but it really led us toward using the glossary and finding another tool that works within Microsoft Word. So it was great.
Fantastic. Terrific. And I'm just going to wait another minute or two before getting started for people who may be showing up late. Um, but we're going to focus today on kind of a little bit of reflection about 2025 and moving into 2026. So the first question I'm going to be asking people, and as a little bit of also our intros of ourselves, is kind of one thing that you feel like you've learned last year that you're taking into 2026. Do we have a fair amount of people with us? Not that many people on camera. You're certainly not required to be on camera. Would love you to turn on the camera if you're willing, so we can be a community. Thank you. And Yeah, let's get started. Because it's a little more thoughtful of a prompt, I'm going to take volunteers as opposed to just calling people and making people, come up with stuff on the fly. But let us try to all answer. I will go first myself. So for anybody who just joined us. So let's start out this group. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to 2026 and to our web legal content managers discussion group. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Um, we're gonna spend today in a little more reflective mode, starting out by introducing ourselves as always, and thinking about one thing that you feel like you learned in 2025 and are taking into 2026. And I'll just start. So I am Laura Quinn. I am your facilitator of this group. I am a consultant specializing in legal websites and other website strategy. Um, and somebody said something in another meeting I was at that really struck me. And it is something that I've been kind of slowly learning and I really want to focus on for 2026, which is the idea of not trying to turn my weaknesses into strengths. So this is a little more meta, and you're welcome to be more detailed than this. But logically, nobody's good at everything. If I'm weak at something, it's unlikely that I'm going to turn it into a strength. So I need to make a better plan than that. I need to think about, all right, can I hire it out? Can I delegate it? Can I not get around having to do it? Or can I make myself adequate at it? But yeah, it's not going to be a strength. Anybody else willing to share something? Either it could be super tactical. We tried to use this word and it was the not a good word, all the way up to, the most meta you can think of. Anybody willing to share?
I'm happy to kick off only because I have nothing of substance to share. Because I am on week 2 as serving as the new project manager for Law Help Colorado. So I'm not
Oh,
even
welcome.
entirely sure where I am most of the day when I am figuring all of this out. I am trying to orient myself in every way, shape, or form. I think you know Molly, French, and Emo. They recommended I join this meeting, so I am just going to soak up and learn from all of you in this meeting and unfortunately offer nothing of substance. And I'm so sorry, but I am grateful to be here.
Fantastic. We're so excited to have you. Welcome. Terrific. Who else?
I'll volunteer to go. I last year learned that I should not be afraid to just ask for what I want, whether it's help or a donation, or can we do something to make this a little easier? You know, sometimes I'm afraid to step on toes. I don't like to be too aggressive, but you can just ask. And it's surprising how many times you'll hear yes. And it's like been my superpower, you know?
Fantastic. Awesome. Who else?
I'll go. I'm Millie Herr, and I'm with Community Legal Aid SoCal. And what I think we've come to the conclusion, rather than try to go back and remember, have a running list of all the changes we make to our website, specifically to also for potential reporting purposes. So yeah, and that's something we just always used to, okay, we did this, we did, and then go back, try to remember and racking our brains. And now we're like, no, we need to make a list. And then as we go, it's like, oh, here's the list. This is what we've done this year. So
Fantastic.
I'll be happy to go next because, in contrast to Kate, one of the things that I learned in the past few months is to ask less of people. The thing that's brand new for me this year is methodically dealing with plain language editing. And our original workflow idea was to have our SMEs, our legal experts, do some of that. And it was really important for me to learn that we needed to add a step with an editor, with somebody who specifically understood about accessibility, headings, formatting, plain language, and that our attorneys, their step in the process was really verifying legal accuracy and clarity. So that was a very helpful insight, and it was very good when I said, okay, that's great, and stepped away from asking people to do that. And I'm always interested, as I was last month, in hearing how people are doing that because it's really, it's a heavy lift.
Mhm. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Jay.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Chinita Chintapel-McClelland. I'm the legal content director at Illinois Legal Aid Online. And this past year, a lot of it for me was spent trying to figure out AI, the role of AI in our work, and then also understanding that you're always going to have people who are really, really for using AI for everything and
Mhm.
taking over the entire process. And then on the other side, a little bit more skeptical. And then, where we fit as legal content managers, where my team fits in all of that, and the best way to move forward in working with these different types of people who have certain expectations or thoughts about how things should go.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you.
Hey, I'll jump in next. My name is Marilyn Zupkoff. I'm the Fund Development and Marketing Coordinator at Community Legal Aid SoCal. I think the thing we learned, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit to a bunch of website people, but the importance of analytics. It was something, I have a Google Analytics account, but I don't think I looked at it once in 2025. So just kind of, understanding the importance of those numbers. I am proud to share that going forward this year, we're going to have a monthly analytics meeting with my team. So we'll see what we can do now that we're looking at Google Analytics. And then something else that came up is just the importance of accessibility on our website. That kind of came at the request of a funder. So it wasn't something we initially thought of, but definitely something that we want to put more emphasis on in 2026.
Fantastic. And who hasn't introduce themselves and said a little something about what they learned in 2025 yet?
I haven't gone yet. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Sauber with Legal Services State Support in Minnesota. I help operate the lawhelpmn.org site. And I have to apologize that I am a bit distracted these days with everything that's going on. But I think one thing that we really learned last year through a couple of not so great examples were um, just the level of human error component that there can still exist in reviewing content. And our content has grown exponentially over the past year or two. And with that, of course, just is a higher lift to make sure that everything maintains accuracy and reviews are good and all of that. And so we're going to be here, actually starting here this month, going to be implementing Lacey, which some of you may have heard about, as just yet another method to kind of help ourselves cross-check and make sure that any changes in the law is accurately being caught and it's being reviewed and getting updated in our content, in addition to our human reviewers that take a look at that content as well.
Fantastic. Who else hasn't gone yet? I think someone just joined. We are just introducing ourselves, and this is a little more of a reflective meeting today. We are talking about a lesson that we learned in 2025 that we're hoping to bring into 2026.
I just joined. Virginia O'Reilly. I'm at Atlanta Legal Aid. I work on GeorgiaLegalAid.org. I have learned to don't start projects early until you have the tools in front of you, even though it might seem exciting or eager. Sometimes you have to be flexible and adaptive, and I don't know. That's just something I have learned personally. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. Has anyone not gone? Great. That is our group. And with the in the vein of Kate's comment about asking for help, I'm really curious as to, and let's do this one. I'll ask you to just type a little something in the chat, and then we'll look at what's in the chat and we'll, have a discussion about it. I'm interested to hear what you would be interested in help from your fellow content managers with. What would you like to either talk to them about, or what could you do together? Or if you were one-on-one, what would you do? So kind of with the power of we've got multiple brains thinking about legal content management, what's one thing or many things that you would like to get out of that? Enter into the chat. Finish up your thoughts in the next 60 seconds or so. I'm counting on all of you not to leave me hanging and looking like I can't facilitate this meeting. Great. Um, Perfect. Yeah, some trends here. Oh, and Janita, you're our Gold Star student, entering things entering things multiple times. Okay, thank you. People are entering things. Yes. So yeah, a couple of trends. So yeah, there's been a big dominance of Drupal in the space for a while, but more people are using WordPress. So that's an interesting thing to try to figure out how to support that. Um, SEO and AI optimization, absolutely. Yeah, maybe I'll at the end of this do kind of just a little bit of a dot poll of some sort or something to kind of talk about what we want to actually do at these meetings, because that could be one. Translations, we had a little bit of a conversation on translations, but we could definitely do more. Yeah, finding SMEs, motivating attorneys, kind of those things that we all deal with all the time. Yeah, a lot of interested in Lacey. Though both of these are Lacey with WordPress. Lacey, for those of you who are not familiar, is a open source tool that allows you to define what laws or statutes or other things dictate the contents that are in articles, and it will track those online statutes, things like that, to see if there is any updates to them, and we'll let you know, hey, this thing was updated, which affects these 4 articles. Great. Yeah, plain language training for volunteers. Yeah, content update help. Yeah, plain language. Yeah, it'd be interesting to think through what we might do ourselves in terms of plain language. We logically know a lot of plain languages, best practices. How can we support ourselves as a group in training others, helping others, things like that. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, I'm just looking at my prompts here. Let's do something that encourages people to talk, because now I'm feeling lonely. I'd love to talk about, so let's put together something you're willing to share that either went awry, so something that you tried to do that didn't work very well. Those are honestly often the most useful things. Or if that's not as comfortable, talk about one thing that you tried that went really well that you think might be useful to other people that we haven't talked about in depth yet as a group. Anybody have something that comes to the top of mind? You can raise your hand or probably just start talking with this group.
I can jump in. I actually have 2 things in mind that we've tried and we're a little bit surprised to find out that they were kind of a flop. And this was kind of a little ways back, so kind of before the world of AI and all of that, just to provide a little context. But we had tried doing a plain language search on our site, and we found that users really did not like it. It did not work well. And it was just not a favorable thing, which we were a bit surprised about. And the other thing that we have found pretty low usage for is video content, which is also, I find quite surprising considering video tends to be a high preferred way of learning these days. But we have a couple of different types of videos, and kind of across the board, we tend to see pretty low usage of those. So yeah.
Great. That's super useful. Actually, I'm curious as to other people's perspective on those two things. Has anybody else been trying either plain language search or videos and finding either the same or something different?
What is plain language search? Can you be a little more specific about that?
Yeah, so it's a natural language, so you can just like start typing in, it's basically like what you would do with an AI prompt right now, just start typing in like a question or what you're looking for. And again, this was like pre-AI days, but we had tried implementing that just natural language like search into our site that folks could just start entering in their prompt and be directed to the resources. And we just found that like they didn't really even know how to describe what they were looking for. Just found it not very useful and preferred the kind of bit more guided and direct paths to getting to the content.
How could you tell that they didn't like it?
Part of it was that we did user studies on it and found that it wasn't helpful. But then we could also see in our search stats that it just wasn't a very well very well working thing and a very used thing. So that was pretty quickly removed.
Can I ask what the search engine was that you used for that?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. It was integrated in our Drupal site. I would have to go back and figure out what that was.
See that being, I could predict that not being ideal. It's kind of replicating Google search, but on this website where they're looking for, I don't know. I'm just trying to predict how that would be the experience. But I have a question on how did you conduct those user experience surveys? I have a really hard time with any kind of feedback I'm searching for with our Law Help website because it gets confused by users of what they need legal help with. So I just think our organization at a whole is like apathetic to it because of negative experience in the past, but I'd really like to start that again.
I would have to go back and confirm which type of user studies we did with this one. I know we had done, and this was back when we were also doing some other big website changes, and that's why I would just have to remember exactly which forms we used for which projects. But I know we had used like A/B testing, and then we had also used where we had people come in and we would just kind of watch them navigate the screen. And then we've had others where we had worked with some consultants on building things out, and then they would do testing where they would have users, run through, some series of prompts or whatever, and then provide their feedback on it. And to be honest, now this was a couple of years ago, and so I don't remember off the top of my head which of those versions we used for this particular project.
Shanita, I think I'm not sure exactly what you're doing now, but I think for a little while you had a natural language to taxonomy mapping search, yeah, on your homepage. Does that sound right? And if so, how was it working well?
No, we moved to embedding back into our site, which we had before. And yeah, it was just causing a lot of different issues for us. So we went back to Google.
So your experience was similar, that so not just for technical reasons, but for other reasons, it just didn't, yeah. And what, if any, impact do we think what does that mean, if anything? Do we have thoughts on, as people are moving more to AI, are people interested, they're not interested in a search through natural language, but maybe they are interested in other things via natural language, like advice, or sorry, not advice, but info via natural language? Or would that imply that they are not interested in conceivably either of those things? Do we have info?
We're testing a chat and search that only uses the content on our domain, but that looks out at AI for synonyms for the search terms to get a lot more natural
Mhm.
recognition of the question that's being asked, and then the results are within only our own content. Haven't tested it with users yet.
Um, our chatbot, Lava Legal Aid Virtual Assistant, only uses knowledge from our Law Help website. Um, though it's not on our Law Help website yet, it's still on atlantalegalaid.org, as it's only been a few months and we're still, be cautious. But it does a good job of synthesizing what the people say and the legal information that could be relevant to their situation. Um,
That's a LawDroid project.
yes.
Do people actually use it or want to use it? Do you know?
It has very much been used and is used daily. I believe it's around 2,000 conversations exchanged so far, and it links back to the rect articles always that it's pulling from. Um, I find it helpful in helping people figure out what even is the legal area or topic from the conversation in total, that they'll have follow-up questions that are more specific.
Great. Shanita?
Yeah, we have Ask Aleo on our site. If you go to our homepage, if you type in something, you can either use our search feature or Ask Aleo, and Ask Aleo pulls an AI summary based on just our content. Our product team really, really likes this. Our legal content team a little less so in pulling the information because there can be, it's not necessarily that the information that we have is inconsistent in different places, but it's just slightly different, right? And so then what it pulls up for people then is not what a legal content manager would prefer. And so we're still working on that, but we do have that on our site currently.
Yeah. And have you done any user testing, or do you have usage stats? So I'm curious as to whether people are eager to use it compared to other things on your site.
Yeah, we have people who do user testing on our team, and people seem to really like it because it looks really nice and personalized. But is a struggle with AI, right? Is that it does look great, whether or not it's correct is a completely different issue, and that's a struggle that we're trying to figure out. Like, okay, how do we work our content? How do we structure our content so that it pulls exactly what we want it to pull and say exactly what we want it to say? It's hard. It's difficult. It's still not where the content team, I think, is completely comfortable with it yet.
That's very similar to the new version of LawDroid. That was the main thing that they were addressing, which is really getting into the details of what they're saying and the content we have, making sure to grasp those nuances. But we've had to adjust the prompt a lot to make sure it's not too personalized in the responses to address concerns of our legal disclaimer that it's providing legal advice. If it's addressing their situation too much, keeping it more general and vague, like our content's written, is something we put in our prompts first and foremost.
I would be curious on seeing how using AI integration with this kind of idea of natural language searching would make a difference. And I have approached the idea with my supervisor, and our web developers have actually reached out to gauge our interest in trying it out on our site, because there is an integration in Drupal for it. And I think it's been sitting in the back of our minds, but because of our previous experience with how that type of search went, and just some other projects we have going on right now, I think it's a little bit kind of further down our totem pole. But now with this growing world of AI and people becoming more used to writing those types of prompts, like I would be curious to see if that is kind of the game changer in using that type of a search now.
Yeah. You could even test something like that in a complete prototype setting, like just to simply user test a page that has the implication of an AI on it to see whether people go there or they still prefer to, navigate through like a browse path or something like that. I am going to move on to see what interesting other people successes or failures, but I'm very interested in the other one that Amanda brought up. It's actually kind of similar to an experience I had, which I will share as well. But having videos, so trying out videos and videos not being necessarily as successful as hoped, are also obviously a lot of work and a lot of work to update. Other folks tried out videos, and how are videos working for you? Mm,
Not in a really long time.
yeah,
There's so
not
much
much.
work. I mean, you put so much time and money and work into them, and then something changes and they're obsolete. And, I tried even experimenting with voiceovers with kind of static pages, but it's still the work to, and I thought, well, it'd be easy to re-record a voiceover, but it's not.
Right.
And it's just so much work. I'm actually more interested in using something like Notebook LM to do a podcast style where it kind of just reads to the person to try to address people with limited literacy abilities that way. I mean, the other thing too is I think people they want 15-second videos. If you give someone a 5-minute video, are they really going to watch it?
Mm,
So
yeah.
I kind of briefly, for a little while, have kind of given up on videos.
Yeah, and Virginia also asked in the chat about the length of the videos. And Amanda's saying that they're not even seeing anybody play it, though they can see the length. Amanda, about how long were the videos?
Like I said, we have a couple of different types of videos. I think some of them are a little bit longer, but we had done a project where we essentially did like video snippets on our fact sheets. And those one, I think our time limit was no more than, I want to say it was maybe 1 minute and 20 seconds, but most of them were below that or well below that. But yeah, we're just not even seeing people enter the videos, much less dropout points.
Yeah. Another thing about video, this is a very old piece of data, like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old. But I did, back when the Florida Technology Justice Project was a thing, they're no longer around. I did a user study with them on different kinds of formats, and we compared videos to flowcharts to FAQs to just long form content, and looked at uh, uh, how much people liked them, how much people actually understood. Like we actually had a comprehension, not a test, but we, just did a little bit of some questions. And there was a third thing. And what we found was that, it was perception of comprehension. So we asked them how much they thought they understood. And what we found was they liked videos the most, they thought they understood things the most, and they actually understood them the least. And it was a reason that it was not a gigantic study, so there's definitely could be more there, but I have a background in user research. So it was a reasonably like, we rotated people and no one saw all and all of that stuff. In fact, I think it's a publicly published study. I could find it somewhere if people were interested. Um, but yes, that was a fairly alarming result that like they thought someone's interested. I'll go dig it up.
I am
Um,
interested because people ask periodically, and I'm like, I'd like to have something to back up my reason for saying no. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So great.
Can I also ask about use of videos? I mean, there's a very big difference between a video that's a how-to based on a fact sheet versus a success story, a personal story about a client that has benefited from this work, and it's about a person and has emotional effect. And I see a big difference between helping people feel that as opposed to the video as a way of getting across a particular set of steps.
No, I think I completely hear that. And I think that I suspect we've all been talking about the idea of not necessarily a set of steps. Actually, mine was a set of steps, but kind of informational videos.
Oh, okay.
But with the idea of trying to certainly ask someone to donate or even to, hey, it's worth filing because you can make this happen. I don't know that what we've been sharing is the same. So awesome.
Thanks.
I'm gonna go look for that study while somebody else shares, if they will, about that was so useful, things that haven't worked. Anybody else willing to share some things or one thing that didn't work for them in the past year or so? I will also allow something that did work for you in the past year, if you prefer.
I don't want to commandeer, so feel free to jump in if there's something else to share. But on that flip side of something that did go well and kind of related to what you were just talking about, Laura, something that has worked really well for us is actually the implementation of what we call knowledge tests, which are basically just like 1 to 3 question quizzes that we've attached to our fact sheets. It started out with only like, I think 10 of them, and we've grown that. And now I would say probably roughly maybe at least half of our fact sheets have them implemented. And we do consistently see high usage of those. People really seem to like those. And we do an annual review of the stats on those to see like how many people are tending to get certain questions right versus wrong. And we use that kind of multiple ways. We use it to address, is there something that, maybe is being misunderstood in our content, or something that we can rewrite our content in another way to make it more clear. And so, yeah, we actually find really good success with those. And we find that we do see actual good numbers of people who do seem to be understanding the content. But yeah.
Fantastic. I've been curious about those. About what percent of readers of a page or visitors to a page actually take the quiz?
Oh, I would have to look at the percentages. And it really varies. We have some that, hardly anyone will take the quiz, and then we have others that it's, hundreds or even in like the thousands in a year's time who will take them. The one hard thing that we have is being able to pull our data. It's not the best because we have a module integrated into Drupal to be able to pull those stats. And so we can kind of see those raw numbers of like how many times have people taken a quiz, but we can't always tell then if it's the same user who's maybe like repeated questions, because you do also have an option to restart. Like if you get it wrong, then you can restart and re-answer. And so we can kind of tell from like timestamps, like if it was likely to be the same user who's answering the question over and over, but it's not like a hard line. Like, yes, we definitively know this. So it's kind of a take it with a grain of salt. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Anybody else doing anything similar and having success or not as much with quizzes? I'm looking for that study. Yes, that old link is no longer working, so I'm hoping it's still up somewhere. But
This is Lori from Washington Law Help Northwest Justice Project, and I joined late. I'm sorry, but uh, I I love the idea of quizzes. I think that's a really fun idea that we could use. I was just going to share one of the new things that we added when we launched our redesign site in May is we now have a listen to feature for all of our um, content that's just integrated, and we use Speechify, and I'm of course locked out of Google Analytics right now, which is really annoying because I was trying to give you all some stats about this that maybe I can share at a later date when someone helps me get back into Google Analytics. But I know that we've been a little surprised and disappointed at the usage of it. We thought it would be a more popular new feature than it is, but we haven't. I think we need to do a little bit more digging about sort of who's using it and why. And even if it's not getting a lot of usage, if it's helping, a specific population, especially of low literacy users, then it's all to the good. One of the things and also what I don't know and would love to find out is if it's getting more or less usage on our Spanish site. So we have a Spanish mirror site, and Speechify actually supports several languages beyond even Spanish, but it will read in Spanish, which is totally awesome. So that's but the nice thing about one of the nice things about Speechify is it's just automatic. It's easy, and so if we update the content, no one has to re-record anything, because I totally feel the pain about keeping updating videos. We've had a pretty robust YouTube channel for many, many years, and as part of the redesign, ended up retiring a lot of videos that we just weren't able to update. And we have a wish list, and someday when there's time, we'll redo them. We did find that we used them a lot during the pandemic, especially because it was a way to get like kind of quick real-time information up. But of course, almost all of those are stale, so we pulled. And we've done some kind of podcasty type interviews with some of our family law attorneys, sort of talking about strategy and changes in the law. And those were long, but actually pretty popular.
Fantastic. Great. Lori mentioned there Speechify or other, I've forgotten there's a jargony term for kind of read out loud thing. There's a plugin for Drupal, for instance. Other people using them that have any thoughts on whether they're going well or not as well? I know that Ohio is doing a lot. Rachel's in here today, unfortunately, but anybody else? Have the rest of you, or some of you, considered and decided not to do any kind of read out loud plugin? As Lori said, they tend to be, you sometimes have to pay for the service, although I was just working with an organization who got it donated. So in fact, got Lori, the same one you mentioned, Speechify donated. So it tends to be fairly quick and easy. Have others decided not to use it, or just kind of haven't gotten there yet in the big list of priorities?
I have a question. For people who prefer to hear web pages read out loud, do they already have something that they're using on their phone or device for all websites that they might just also be using on ours?
They could, certainly. I
I'm
don't
just
know if
curious
yet.
about the additional benefit of having that specifically for one website out of the hundreds they might use.
It would depend on, I would think, tech literacy. Yeah, Lori?
I was going to say, as I've been talking about this new feature in outreach and community, that it's not intended to be a substitute for a accessibility tool that people use, that people who need screen readers for everything that they're doing because of a visual impairment. People who use screen readers have a screen reader, and that crawls websites, and that's why you need to make sure your website's accessible so it works for them. So something like the Read Aloud or the Speechify is, I think, much more useful for a low literacy user who is probably not using a screen reader for everything that they have. And also just for the person on the go, or that in the car when you're, we're all trained to listen to podcasts these days, and that's, just a different way of consuming information. So it's definitely not intended to be for a replacement for a disability accessibility screen reader, because also our Speechify, we've limited it to, so it's only reading kind of the meat content. It's not going to navigate you through the page. And also we do pay for Speechify. They gave us some of it for free, but because the character limits were too low, so we were bumping up against that. And so in order to get sort of the unlimited character limits that we wanted, we are paying for it. I don't remember how much, but I remembered like it was pretty nominal. But one of the reasons it's pretty nominal is that we give them attribution. And so there's a little Speechify tag next to the audio, which is, I can live with that.
Yeah, right. And Amanda's added into the chat. Yeah, you want to talk about Hmong Somali, Amanda? I think that's a really great comment as well.
Yeah, so this was another thing that we had done kind of in conjunction with our many other projects a few years back. And we tried this on a pretty limited subset of our content, but we had done audio on some of our Hmong and Somali content. And we did that with the reason that at least here, it seems that many of the folks on our stage or our content users don't necessarily read in the language, but it's more of a spoken language. And so we had tried doing those readovers of the fact sheets for people who would prefer to listen to it versus try to, scramble reading through all of that text. And similarly, we found really low usage of those as well. And this was, again, like pre-AI tools and some of these other fancier tools like Speechify now, where it is an easier thing to maintain. We actually had to have our translators read our fact sheets and do these. And so we've ultimately taken them down just because over time, as changes have happened and whatnot, they just became inconsistent enough that things were just too out of date. But I do think that there's, potentially some value in the tools that we see nowadays, and being able to retry something like this again.
Yeah.
Can I ask for a pin on that topic? Maybe for next time. Automated translation and manual translation. I know some languages and some services, the automated translation is really not good. And Amanda, you just mentioned some of those limitations. And I'm curious about manual translation and that cost, and is that cost benefit worth it? And that's a topic maybe somebody else has dealt with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if
that's a great one to, a good call to put a pin in the other one. And I think to put a pin in the automated manual translation for another, there was a number of people who were interested in it, but it's a big topic.
Yeah,
so I think that's
exactly what our overhaul project is about right now, is the cost benefit.
Yeah. I think a very short overview is that Google Translation, bad. Many AI, okay. Some combination of AI and human, best. Let's see. But yes, lots. We actually, I can dig up what we talked about for a future conversation, to kick off a future conversation with what we had a kind of a 15-minute overview of services and stuff like that. Maybe one more person want to share something that worked or worked much less well than they had hoped it would last year before we do our great wrap up. I know somebody other than Amanda learned something last year.
Last year, I mean, and I guess this is kind of related to translations as well. We gave up on staff translating our content and went with a company called Motion Point, which also uh, translates Texas Law Help, which I worked on prior to Leo. And we went through this process of getting bids and all that, and thought it would be much more expensive than it turned out to be. And the service that we use, it is machine translated, but there is a human that translates part of it, and then it trains the system. And we gave it a style guide, and then we have somebody now who goes through and just periodically checks to make sure everything is consistent. And it has worked well for us. We have a few things that we're still trying to work out, as is Texas Law Help, but overall, it has been great for us because it translates any change that we make on the English site within 24 hours into Spanish. And it's basically the first time that we've had equity as far as our English site and our Spanish site and having all of our content on there. So that's been a success for us.
Thank you.
Fantastic. That's exciting. So. Great. I'm going to actually add into I'm going to use this, well, I was going to say that it's a self-centered action. It's in the benefit of the group. I'm going to add some potential topics into the chat here. And I'll say, go ahead and, all right, I need to stop typing while I'm talking. I'm going to add some topics for potential discussion into the chat, and go ahead and put a thumbs up if you would show up to talk for an hour on that topic. If you find yourself giving a thumbs up to absolutely every one of them, maybe be a little more selective. But I'm just going to start typing in topics. I have about 8 of them. So just go ahead and thumbs them up or not as you see them. Go ahead. Also ask questions if you don't know what they mean. The plain language training, meaning for others. So how do we train other people in plain language? Yes, GEO is AI findability. So that's the buzzword for AI findability or other things. There's several. This would also be a great time to add your own topic in that you would like to talk about. All right, that is my list. Oh, nope, I have one more. All right, and anybody, please feel free to enter a topic that you may not see there. That is, oh, Shanita had mentioned. Oh, that actually 2 things Shanita had mentioned. She's mentioned that she is willing to talk about content parties in more detail. So Elise and others who weren't with us, this is the idea of bringing not search, but subject matter experts together into a room in with pizza to get them to review content. And Shanita was interested in earlier. Here we go. All right. Take a minute to look through this list of topics and do your thumbs up on things that you would be interested in seeing more on. We will take that and we will then do a wrap up. All right, so as you are doing your last thumbs up, would love to hear from you. One thing, maybe into the chat, one thing that you're taking away from today. One thing that was interesting. One thing that was interesting. I'm just gonna capture these thumbs ups. Knowledge quizzes on content pages. Thank you, Lori, for that. That was a really interesting thing. I learned that the people, at least a few years ago, were not as interested as maybe they might be now, or maybe still aren't, in ways to get plain language questions. So that's kind of, to me, maybe a user research question. Other things. All right, I'm not going to force you guys to keep typing. Thank you so much for your time and for your great energy as a group, as always. I'll try to send out topics for the group a little more in advance. I've been spending them out, just a day or two before, which I know makes it hard to plan for. Thank you so much. But we do this particular day. I think it's the second Thursday. It might be the third Thursday in perpetuity. So we'll see you again on the third Thursday of February. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Shall I